It's fall, and that means it's time for a fall scroll saw project. And what better place to get our inspiration than that all-time classic movie, It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. But how do we take a cartoon and turn it into a scroll saw project? I played my video and stopped at the exact scene in which I want to make my artwork. Took a screenshot of that, I put that picture in Inkscape, turned it into a black and white graphic. Now I actually have my template. There was some little modifications I did. I drew a couple lines here, a couple lines there. Nothing really crazy though, I just wanted to make sure that I had definitive shapes because, well, artwork where you have shading is not the same as actually having full cut lines. You know this piece is going to be this color and this piece is going to be that color. I'm going to make up the colors as I go. I'm going to try to follow the picture, but I'll probably deviate a lot. The big thing though is what's going to be the background. Well, I can't really do blue, can I? So I think I'm going to go with the light background, maybe some maple, if I have wide enough maple. Maple in my shop might be a little bit arduous. I glued some maple up into a really thin panel, sanded it down, and it is really thin. I'm talking, this is less than 1/8 of an inch thin, just for perspective. This is gonna be the background for my artwork. Speaking of artwork, I have that right here. I'm fortunate enough to have a printer that will print off a big sheet of paper. If I didn't have that, I would just print regular size paper and then tape them all together to make a big picture. To tackle this project, we needed a couple tools, and that's gonna be a cutting mat, spray adhesive, contact paper, and of course scroll saw blades. There are several different ways you could put your artwork onto your workpiece. I like to use contact paper. I know a lot of people just will take spray adhesive and spray it on their artwork and just stick it right on the board. Some people will use tape and put it on there and tape the crap out of it. Contact paper works fantastic instead. What I do is I just cut a sheet of this. I'm gonna peel this off and I'm gonna stick it right onto my workpiece. Then I'm gonna take my spray adhesive and I'm gonna spray the back of my artwork and I'm gonna stick it onto the contact paper. I can cut the whole thing out, and when I'm done, I'll just peel the contact paper off and it will be clean, there'll be no residue. Really easy to peel up all that stuff. I'm telling you, it's a game changer compared to just spraying artwork straight on the workpiece and you have all that gunkiness. Try contact paper. I drilled a pilot hole so I could thread my blade through that, and I'm gonna cut out my background. I gotta remember, leave the background cut out linus. Now for the blade, I'm using a number 5 crown tooth blade. That is my favorite blade to use, is a crown tooth. And I can use it on this because this is really thin and it's a domestic species here in the US, it's not oily. If I'm using an exotic species, a lot of times I can't use a crown tooth blade. The blade teeth are just too close together and it really gums up. Time to cut this thing out. My background looks pretty good. Now all the pieces I cut out, I set those off to the side. I'm definitely gonna use them later. Here's the next step. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna glue it onto a background so it's dark. Now this is just a piece of 1/2 inch thick MDF. I glued on some Wingay veneer because I want something really dark. Other side is cherry. That's because if you glue stuff on one side of a panel, you wanna glue it on the other side too, because otherwise you start stacking stuff up on one side, your project can bow or cup on you. I'm gonna take some Titebond glue. I'm gonna take a roller, put some glue on this thing, glue it onto the Wingay. For the back side, because again, you need to have something on the back too, I got this. This is just a piece of poplar, really thin, kind of ugly, doesn't matter, doesn't need to be pretty because it's gonna go on the back side. So I'm gonna make a sandwich, like this. Wood sandwich. After the glue was dry, I ran it across the table saw to clean up all the edges. Looks good, but I didn't take a closer look. I want to make sure that all of these tiny areas are properly glued down before I start putting all the pieces in there. And what I can see is they all look really good. They all seem to be properly glued down. None of them are wiggly, and there's no glue squeeze out, which means we got the perfect amount of glue on this. It's ready to go. Now I got to put all my pieces on there, and when I look at the artwork, I see a lot of layers. You've got that fence in the very back. Then you've got some grass and some pumpkins, and they kind of just gradually move up into the foreground. Well, I'm not going to hit all those different layers. I don't think I need to, but I do want to have a little bit of depth, you know, whenever you look at it. Also, it seems like there's a whole lot of greens. So this is what I'm going to do. I would start at the very back, the fence, and then move up, but the fence is white, and I'm not going to do that. You'll see why later on. Don't do white first, do white last. I'm going to take my cutoffs that I had for whenever I cut the background, kind of treat them like puzzle pieces. I can drop those into place. And I also have my templates that I printed out. So I could take those templates, I could stick it on my workpiece, I could cut out my shape, and then I could also cut out the same shape out of my cutoffs. The remaining part of that background is going to make it so that I glue my piece where it's supposed to be at. As I'm cutting out all these background pieces, I feel like I'm using a whole lot of green. And I hope that all this green doesn't just blend together. But you know, I'm doing my best. I'm using a couple different species, and then I'm also trying to mix up the heights a bit. So I'm using canary wood for a lot of it, but the canary wood is gonna end up being more brownish color. So it looks sort of green now, but it probably won't look green whenever I'm all done with it. The other species I'm using is lignum vitae, which is one of my favorite to use. This stuff is beautiful. It will turn very dark green if you let it. Like this piece right here is gorgeous. But if you just sand it or just plane it, you know, you just work the surface, it's gonna be a lighter color. If you set it out in the sun, it'll get very, very dark green, which is kind of cool. Here's like a little piece right here that's pretty dark green. What I'm envisioning is the canary wood towards the back, a little bit browner, and then I'll kind of mix in lignum vitae, and in certain pieces, I'll sand. You know, if they're dark green, I'll sand them and make them a little lighter. Other pieces I'll leave dark green. And I'm hoping after I put finish on it, it'll still have that variation. Who knows? Looking at my picture, I'm seeing that there's pumpkins kind of all over the place. Those pumpkins are really important because it gives that splash of color. For that, I'm gonna use orange wood, but I wanna make sure that there's some variations in that depth, right? The pumpkins in the very back need to be thinner than the pumpkins in the very front. We don't need a whole lot of depth. We just need a little bit, and visually it's gonna look like a whole lot. I typically will just grab like offcuts of things that I've cut pieces out of, and I'll go, okay, like this is lignum vitae. I could put it up to this orange, and I can go, okay, I know the orange is just slightly thicker than that. So that works. Like if this is a background, you could have a pumpkin next to it and it will look like there's some dimension. So the yellow I've got, this is a canary wood, yellow heart, that's what it is, it's yellow heart. And I've got this where it is just slightly thicker than the orange. I figure that whenever I start getting to the very front, those are gonna be super thick because I want those pumpkins to be like the thickest orange wood I have, which I'll have to find some. I don't know what I have. I'm over at the edge, and this is where I'm gonna have to change things up. I've been working my way from the middle out to the edges. Now I want my artwork to go as far to the edge as possible, and this is gonna be inside a frame. So that means that those pieces need to be butted up against the inside of the frame. That means I need a frame, which I have one here. This is a piece of cherry that I quickly made a frame for, and I can set that into place and then glue in the rest of my pieces. Now, if you're interested in making picture frames, I have a bunch of videos that go step by step through the process of that. That's over on my main YouTube channel, so I'll put a link down in the description if you want to check that out. This is where I find out if I've been off on any of my measurements, right? Like I said, the stuff in the back's got to be a little bit thinner than the stuff that's in the front. Well, I also don't want this protruding too far outside my picture frame because my artwork's going to have this picture frame placed over it. And I would like to have the stuff that, like the plants that are kind of covering those pumpkins in front of Linus, I would like for those plants just flush with my frame. If it's not, I'll take the frame off and I'm going to sand the crap out of it until it's flush with my frame. Oh, Linus, what am I gonna make you out of? I gotta cut Linus out of some species of wood. Which one do I use? Well, you know, it's kind of hard because when you look at the picture, he's kind of pinkish, which is not a natural wood color. You know, you can try to find maybe like a maple-y color that has some of that color in it, but is it gonna stay that way? Yeah. So what I was thinking was sycamore, because sycamore has some pretty cool texture to it that looks kind of like skin. But I also want to make sure that it doesn't blend in too much with the background, because remember, our background is maple. So what I did, I got my gloves for a reason, mineral spirits. What this is going to do is it is going to allow me to see kind of projected what the color is going to look like whenever I put finish on it. Do I have some towels? This is a piece of maple that's an offcut from the background, and I can put some mineral spirits on it and kind of get an idea of what that color will probably look like whenever I put finish. And it might be a little bit hard to see on camera. I'm doing my best here, but it's fairly light. Now, sycamore, though, can be in all kinds of different colors. Let's see here. That one looked really light, and I started putting this on there, and it looks much more brown. You have this one, you know, even darker. This is maybe an in-between. I don't know. We'll see what that looks like. So now I can take these and put them up to my maple piece and see what's it gonna look like whenever I put these on top of it. I also have to take into consideration that these pieces may darken a little bit. They're not gonna lighten over time. They may darken a little bit over time. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna take a gamble. I'm gonna pick out the one that I think is gonna look best to have enough contrast against the background, but I'm completely gambling. Fingers crossed, it turns out okay. I'm making some steady progress on this, just going one piece at a time, even though it is taking a long time. I want to keep going, but I need to stop because I'm gonna now use holly. I love holly. It's a beautiful white wood. It is very soft, but it is the whitest wood you're gonna come across. The problem is, when you're using an exotic species like bloodwood, dark red, and then you get it near holly, the holly is gonna collect all that dust and it's gonna turn pink, and that's a problem. So what I have to do is stop, do some sanding, clean this up. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use like some of these. I have some sanding sticks. These are pretty awesome little sticks. I'll take chisel and I'll just do some scraping, make sure I get anything I need to scrape away or round over and stuff. I can do it with a chisel. I'll probably use an X-Acto knife to do some cleaning. And I'm also gonna clean the crap out of it with some mineral spirits, make sure it is spotless in every way. Then I'm gonna take some of this holly, I'm gonna cut out the sign and the fence in the back. Finally, I do have to get like a little piece. I got to put in the handle for the sign, but it's basically done. I'm just gonna stick that in there, glue that in there in just a second. Whew, that kicked my butt. All right, I'm gonna put that in there and I'm gonna just make sure that everything's nice and clean. And then I'm gonna apply finish. For finish, I'm just gonna use some spray lacquer, and I like to go with a matte. I don't want my picture to be glossy. Matte just works well for me. This project that was supposed to be kind of quick actually took a couple weeks to make and ended up being a lot harder than I really expected, but it was worth it. It turned out really cool. I like the layers. You know, they're not super deep, but they're deep enough that gives it a little bit of interest there whenever you look at it. I took a risk on using sycamore for Linus, and I think that paid off pretty well. I hope it stays that shade and doesn't darken up. There are definitely a lot of greens, but there seems to be some variations in the colors, and hey, that's really all I can ask for. Thank you to the Super community over on Patreon for supporting me and allowing me to make videos like this. These videos take a long time, so I really appreciate it. And to meet again, get in your shop and build something awesome.